Hey, my name is Lauren, and in the first video, I shared a little bit about why I'm sharing my journey of recovering from a tibial plateau fracture. In this video, I want to share what my goals are for this recovery. For a little bit of context, I'm somebody who has had a really active physical life my entire life from the time I was a young kid. When I was in middle school and high school, I actually trained to go to the Olympics. I lived away from home at the Olympic Training Center up in Lake Placid. I was surrounded day in and day out by incredible athletes who were working really, really hard towards these incredibly audacious goals of becoming the best in the world at whatever it was that they did. And so I'm somebody who's really accustomed to setting huge goals, especially huge athletic goals, working really hard towards them, but also understanding that there's a bit of a sort of chicken and an egg or a paradox to doing this. That to do it and to succeed, you have to believe that you're going to succeed at those goals. But you have to believe that in the face of setback after setback and on a timeline that often is years long. And for many of us, you end up realizing that you never achieve that full goal that you set out to, right? I'm not an Olympian. I didn't compete in the Olympics, but I had innumerable successes along the way. And I never would have even been able to get close to that goal if I hadn't been really clear about setting this enormous goal for myself of going to the Olympics and competing toe to toe with the best in the world. And so that kind of mindset, right, of being clear on what my goals are and working hard towards them day in and day out amidst setbacks is the type of approach that I want to take to my recovery from this injury. So I want to start with what my goals are before I even share how I got injured, where I am in my recovery, etc., because I want to make sure I'm clear-eyed about that. And I don't actually think I've said it out loud, really, even to most of my friends or family. I think because many of them just assume, I think they know what my goals are, or that they don't want to presuppose and get ahead of sort of what's realistic. So for me, I'm somebody who, before getting injured, I walked about 12,000 steps a day. I don't own a car because I bike commute everywhere. Most recently, I was doing a job where I was going into the office about 3 or 4 days a week, and I was biking each way, about 35 minutes each way. So minimum, I was biking about 70 minutes every single day, pretty much. And that's before trips to the grocery store or to the gym or to see a friend, etc. So really somebody for whom mobility was a fundamental part of my life. I'm somebody who rode the Peloton, went out and used to do ClassPass before that kind of dissolved during the pandemic, and somebody who went to the gym or did a workout probably a minimum of 4 days a week. As far as my hobbies, a lot of my hobbies are really active hobbies. I hike a lot. I ski very actively. I mostly do downhill skiing with friends, but 2 years ago I started to get into backcountry skiing and got my Avalanche 1 certification and was sort of working my way up in competence when it comes to backcountry skiing and comfort with that. So getting back to that sort of an active lifestyle, that's my goal. Within the next year, I want to be back to being able to walk comfortably 10,000 steps a day. I want to comfortably be able to stand and cook and do all of the types of at-home, normal, functional activities that I have always done and that are a core part of how my lifestyle is possible. I want to get back to bike commuting. So within this year, I want to be back to bike commuting everywhere. I don't want to have to do grocery delivery. I want to be able to bike to the grocery store and pick up my food. When I start a new job, I want to be able to bike there. I want by the end of 1 year of recovery to be back to those sort of basic functions of life that felt normal to me. Now, as far as workouts, this is something where I want to be a bit more flexible with myself. I know that there are a lot of unknowns with this recovery, and so I think by the 1 year mark, what I want to achieve is being able to do some form of my preferred workout at a normal level. So what do I mean by that? I used to do a lot of yoga. Yoga is a lower impact sport, but also one that requires a lot of stamina and a lot of flexibility. So if a year from my injury, I'm back to being able to do a 30-minute, 45-minute yoga class success, even if I'm not yet back to downhill skiing or something like that. If a year post-injury, I am able to get back to doing something like a 30-minute Peloton workout, even if I'm not yet doing road races or able to do a full triathlon, success. I'd love to be able to run. Running is something for me that I go in real waves with. Sometimes I'm running a ton. Back when I lived in the Bay Area, I made a lot of my friends through a running group that I was really involved with. And then I kind of got burnt out on running during the pandemic. Because running was one of the only sports I could do during the pandemic, I did a lot of it. And then the first year post-vaccine, I only ran like 25 miles or something like that. Like I barely ran at all because I was just so bored of it after the pandemic. So running isn't necessarily an immediate goal for me because I'm okay with the fact that sometimes I am out of the habit of running a ton, but it is something that I want to be on the table. So even if that is shorter jogs or less intense runs, I do want to be able to do something like run a mile by the end of year 1 of recovery. So those are my goals. From there, I'll reassess. I think by year 2, I definitely want to be back to some of my core hobbies like downhill skiing and doing more active like CrossFit style workouts and things like that involve a lot more dynamic movement. I wanted to start taking tennis lessons pretty seriously. That's the kind of thing that I want to be able to do in year 2. If I can do them sooner, amazing. But my real fundamental goal is to acknowledge that I am going to have to do a lot of rehab to get back up and back to a functional baseline that's normal to me. But I believe I can do that, and I'm going to work hard towards it. I may have elements of pain or stiffness or things like that in the long run, and of course I'll manage them as they come, but I want to assume that I'm going to get back to a life that is full of activity, that is full of fitness, and that is enabling of a lot of these hobbies that have been really critical sources of community and joy and connection to nature and big part of who I am as a person. So for me, those are my goals. That's what I'm setting out to do. And I'm going to share my progress towards those goals over the next year via this YouTube channel. So I'm going to share every other week a video about where I am, what I've accomplished. I would love to answer any questions you might have because I know I have questions that I'm going to pose. And if you're watching this and you're going through this as well, I'd love to know where you are in your journey. So my first question back to you is kind of like, what are your goals? What did your doctors share with you as kind of reasonable benchmarks for what you would be able to get back to when you go through your own recovery from your tibial plateau fracture? And where are you in those goals? If you're somebody who's watching this and you have gotten back to some of those key elements of your life that make you happy and that bring you joy, I would love for you to share those because I'm really looking for a little bit of inspiration right now on my own journey as I set forward on this progress back to a normal, for me, active lifestyle. So hope you'll follow along and share anything in the comments about what goals you're working towards in your own recovery.